Estimados miembros de nuestra comunidad latinoamericana, muy bienvenido a su programa comunitario Nosotros. Estamos aquí con Max Caravantes, el presidente del Latino Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Muy bienvenido al programa, Max.
Muchas gracias, Rodrigo.
Max, cuéntanos a nuestro público qué está pasando aquí en el St. John's Institute hoy día.
Mira, hoy día convidamos a los 3 candidatos con más posibilidades de salir elegidos para la silla del Mayor. Los convidamos para hacerles una sesión de preguntas y respuestas para que la comunidad latina tenga acceso a esa información y puedan tomar una decisión informada cuando voten.
Según tu perspectiva, los latinos deben llegar a las urnas, votar para los candidatos, ¿no?
Absolutamente, porque la participación cívica nos va a involucrar en el sistema político, en los 3 niveles de gobierno, y va a hacer que seamos una comunidad participante en el sistema político y podamos mejorar nuestra representación política. O sea, un consejero latino en los próximos años no sería algo extraño, ni un miembro del Parlamento, ni un miembro de la Asamblea Legislativa, y tenemos que trabajar juntos para eso.
Ya, para mejorar nuestro impacto como latinoamericanos aquí viviendo en la ciudad de Edmonton, en los procesos políticos aquí de la ciudad, ¿no?
Exacto. Creo que es importante crear una plataforma, una plataforma en la cual nuestras nuevas generaciones, como por ejemplo como tú, como otros que se han tirado a la vía pública, puedan ser elegidos y puedan tener poder detrás de la comunidad.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Max, por darnos esta oportunidad, por organizar el foro y todo. Te agradecemos mucho por entregar, y todos los miembros del Latino Canadian Chamber of Commerce por todo el trabajo que han hecho para que se realice este evento hoy día.
Bueno, mira, esto está organizado también por el St. John's Institute. Ellos nos facilitaron este local. Ustedes, nosotros, Soy Hispano, varias otras organizaciones. La idea fundamental no es que nos organiza las cosas, sino hacerlas.
Muy bien dicho, Max. Muchas gracias por estar aquí en Nosotros.
Muchas gracias, Rollo. Cuídate.
Now I would like to introduce Max Caravantes, the president of the Latino Canadian Chamber of Commerce. He has some words of wisdom for this forum. Max Caravantes.
I don't know about the words of wisdom, right? But certainly I would like to welcome the candidates. Thank you for being here. This is an amazing opportunity to know them, to know what they think, to know what they stand for, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization. We have 4 years since we started. And we are trying to unite all Latino businesses in Canada, not just in Edmonton. And we are also trying, to get our community involved in the national politics, like local politics, provincial politics, and federal politics. We believe that a community that is involved and participative, in the political process is a community that is well represented. I would like to also invite here Susana Britton. She is the director executive of the St. John Institute. They actually lent this amazing facility for us. And Susana, are you? She's right here. Right here.
Thank you and welcome. We're especially pleased that we're able to host this event because the reason that I met Max and Catherine Kwan and all the other people who have helped to organize it is because a week and a half ago we were Edmonton's only featured celebration site for the province's Alberta Culture Days. And that's where I met our guests, and that's when they asked about using this facility for exactly what it's intended to be used for, which is bringing the community together. Welcome to the Latino Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for the opportunity. And just so that you know what this odd bird of St. John's Institute is, we are a couple of different things. We have an affordable housing program. All of our top 4 floors are residential. People live here all year round. Some live here during the school terms. Some people come here as guests of a conference, stay 2 or 3 days, similar to a hotel. So we do that. And we also provide meeting and event space, as you're part of right now, for organizations that deal in arts, culture, education, and human services. So we are here to actually help build up community in whatever way we can. We also help to coordinate events for organizations that may not have as much experience, or nonprofits, voluntary organizations who need a little bit of know-how. We are very, very willing and happy to share that with them because we always get lots and lots out of it. We learn something ourselves as well. We do on and off-site catering. We catered for everybody from Manbridge to Northwest to Huon to all over the place. We have a twice monthly pierogi supper that's open to the community here, so drop on by. Really cheap and the best ones in the city. Part of our mandate is to provide youth leadership development and act as a hub of arts and culture. And we're really proud that things like the Alberta Culture Days Festival, for which we closed off White Avenue for one of the nights, and things like the Fringe Festival. In this very room, we had a 32-foot stage and seating for 100. We had 2 back-to-back Fringe shows during the summer. So we like to facilitate and accommodate things like that for artists and organizations who don't necessarily have the cash that might otherwise stand in the way of them doing their activities. So the last thing I'll say is that we hope that you come to us and of course to our next Mayor of Edmonton for whatever purpose you might see fit to use our facility for. We have gallery space, we have performance space, we have meeting space, and we hope it will be well used because we would like to share it with you. Thank you very much for being here.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for coming, especially the candidates. So dear candidates for Mayor of the City of Edmonton, Mrs. Karen Levovici, Mr. Don Iveson, and Mr. Kerry Diot. And thank you. So for the opening remarks, each candidate will have 3 minutes. Please present to us your family background and the reasons you decided to run for mayor of this amazing city of Edmonton. I invite you to listen carefully to their beliefs, ideas, plans, and proposals for the next hour with us. And I want you to commit to become involved citizens and to vote massively the 21st of October.
Well, thank you so much. Hola and bienvenidos. It's indeed a great pleasure to be here, and thank you to our host. Thank you to Max and the Chamber of Commerce, as well as to the moderator and all of you for coming out on holiday weekend. You asked in your opening remarks that we talk about our background a little bit, and I'll start with that I'm the child of immigrant parents. My parents came from, my father's Romanian, my mother's Austrian. They came to Canada, and I was born 5 months later, so we sometimes joke about how I was smuggled over into the country because I was in her tummy. I come from humble beginnings. The first place that they were able to live in was a room within someone else's flat. And it was a 3-story building. And they were able to live in that room. We then my father then learned English because he had to take English as a second language. I'm not 1 minute left. No. Oh, I see. Now I understand the system. It's he worked in a factory cutting men's clothing, and then eventually he was able to get himself a taxi license and drove taxi in the city of Montreal for 37 years. I worked my way through university. I had jobs, waitress, retail. I have 3 university degrees, as well as I have worked as a social worker, a negotiator, both for a union and for management, human resource professional, have been a member of the Legislative Assembly, as well as a city councillor for 12 years. So you can see that I have a fair amount of experience in various areas of work, all of which I believe apply to the job of Mayor of the City of Edmonton, because quite frankly, this is a job application that we're going through. You are my employer. When my husband and I came to Edmonton 33 years ago, and so we are new to the City of Edmonton too. We weren't born here. We came here, much like probably many of you in the room here. What we realized after staying here 2 to 3 years, because that was our plan, we were not going to stay here long, was that this is a fabulous city. And And our son, he's 26 years old. He's a graduate of the University of Alberta. He's a civil engineer. He also understands the great city that Edmonton is and has made a decision to stay here too. The election is important because we need to ensure we're going to take care of the city's business, that we're going to keep our momentum moving forward, and at the end of the day, that we are indeed a home for all, because our diversity is something that we need to celebrate. So, por favor, voten me. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carrie, want to vote?
Get control of this thing. Buenas tardes, Dobra den, and greetings. I grew up in Northern Ontario, Sault Ste. Marie actually, and moved here in 1985, one of 5 children, and I was a long-time journalist, 30 years in journalism. So I spent my career looking out for people. I truly have. As a journalist, it's about people. And I'm truly passionate about people. I'm passionate about this city's future as well, your future. That's why I'm running to be your mayor. My goal from the outset of this campaign has been to make everyday life better for all Edmontonians. And my vision for a better Edmonton is your vision. I've heard it at the doors. We've done a lot of door knocking, and we've heard the vision at the doors. The next mayor, people tell me, must stop raising taxes and running up the debt to build visionary mega projects. It's people before palaces. And you want a mayor who will make this great city even better, more livable, more affordable, attractive, prosperous, inclusive. I hear you. As mayor, I'll insist tax hikes are no higher than the rate of inflation. That's now about 2%. We must fix our core services. We just have to, including rebuilding our failed roads and drainage systems. I will find efficiencies at City Hall and take care of our debt. It's fast approaching $3 billion. That's up from about $400 million only 10 years ago. And if the arena goes into overruns, because we won't have a final price on that until February, I say not another cent of tax money goes into it, period. These are the main issues in my campaign because I actually listen and care about what Edmontonians are saying. This is your agenda for change. My opponents have their own agendas. My worthy opponent, Councillor Leach, has tried to make the election about her experience. Fair enough. After all, she's been a professional politician and bureaucrat for about 20 years. So she's promising to introduce more committees and bureaucracy at City Hall. My other worthy opponent, Councillor Avison, is known for his left-leaning visions. His utopian ideology, as well spoken as it is impractical and unaffordable. His agenda for Edmonton has even caught the eye of Mike Kadimi from Greenpeace, the organization that wants to shut down the oil sands. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in Edmonton if I'm told to just have one car in the garage. Both my opponents will continue to tax and spend on their visions like bike lanes, a funicular in the river valley, and a false beach nowhere near water. And don't even get me started on the tennis balls. My opponents believe that other levels of government can be bullied into sending more tax dollars to City Hall, but you know, there really is no Easter Bunny. It's time to get real. This election is a grassroots uprising of voters who are going to clean house at City Hall. I truly believe that. A vote for me is a vote to ensure your taxes and your issues are at the top of the agenda of next City Council. Vote Carrie Diot, vote for real change.
Thank you very much. We invite Don to the podium.
Hola. Well, I also attract the attention of Lauren Gunther, so that just shows you that I have broad appeal across the political spectrum. The difference is I'm really happy to have Lauren Gunther's approval and the nice things that he said about me in the newspaper, but I've never talked to Mike Kadima about municipal politics, at least not since the election started, so I don't know where that's coming from, frankly, and I'm getting a little tired of this, but that's okay. You guys are here to hear from us about our vision for the city, and that's what I've been focusing on throughout this whole campaign. I got elected in 2007 on a platform in part focused on looking after our infrastructure properly, because I saw my city getting run down. Our city was neglected for many, many years, and it needs reinvestment in our roads, in our libraries, in our parks, in our recreation centers, and we're making those investments, and I'm proud of those investments. That's where your money has gone, is in rebuilding our city and building up our city. About my family, my mom's family actually moved here more than 100 years ago to help start the medical faculty at the University of Alberta. So part of my family's been here for a very, very long time working to build Edmonton. And on the other hand, my wife's family moved here in the 60s from Hong Kong. They came with very, very little money and built their own businesses. They have that immigrant entrepreneur experience, and I look to my father-in-law as a mentor because of what he had to overcome in racism and barriers to his success. But his hard work has paid off, and he's raised 3 wonderful children, one of whom is my wife Sarah, who's here, can wave. And so I draw great strength and wisdom from my in-laws' experience, and respect anyone who has journeyed far across an ocean or a long way to come to this land and to be a part of building a shared greater opportunity, which is why many of us are here in Edmonton and why this remains such a great place to live and raise a family and do business, and it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. Now there is work to do. Obviously infrastructure, we need to continue to invest in that at a reasonable pace that we can sustain. We need to improve the situation in our region. Relations with our neighbors are still a challenge, but I've been working on this personally for the past several years, building coalitions with our neighbors, doing active diplomacy with our neighbors, because as we know, when we're in cooperation with our neighbors and when we have more friends, we get more done. And local government is very, very weak, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, relative to the province, relative to the federal government. My philosophy is you have to build strong coalitions in order to get the attention of the province and the attention of Ottawa. And so we have to also build coalitions with Calgary and with other municipalities, larger centers, the cities in Alberta, because Alberta is an urban province now. 83% of us live in urban areas in this province. I mean, there is still something to the cowboy in the foothills. That's still part of this province's heritage, but that's not who Edmonton is. That's not who Alberta is anymore. It's a room like this with diversity like we see, and all of us pulling together in cities to build an even more remarkable place to live. So there's a few more things to do, but one thing I just want to mention is I've been working with folks from a number of different agencies on the idea of building an immigrant business incubator so that we can help folks coming here who are having challenges with credential recognition build their own businesses, create their own jobs, create opportunity within their own communities, and then eventually grow those businesses to compete with the businesses that we already see here in Edmonton. So that's just one idea I have about increasing inclusion and economic success, and I'd actually like to work with the Latino Chamber on implementing that idea if elected on October 21st. Thanks.
So the first question, and we'll start with Karen. What are your thoughts and ideas for protecting, strengthening, and diversifying Edmonton's business, especially those created by investors and entrepreneurs from other cultures that choose Edmonton as their base for their families and the development of their business?
Well, thank you for that question, and in 1 minute I'll be very, very brief. I suggest you go onto my website, karenformayor.ca. I have numerous suggestions that I put forward with regards to how we can work with small and medium-sized businesses in the city. I've also put forward an initiative, a mayor's initiative on diversity and inclusion, and part of that also is matching people's skills with what businesses need. And we're very well positioned to do that with the many organizations in place. also having mentorship and internship opportunities. I've talked about cutting red tape, because one way to ensure that businesses are wanting to set up in the city is that if we can cut the red tape so they can actually set up. Lots of times, 4 or 5 months later, they're still waiting for an approval. That's not the way to do business in the city. That's not the way to encourage business, and that's not the way to encourage investment. If we want to look at, and it looks like we're not doing the minute for the answers. A lot of experience. That's what experience does. Right? In terms of bringing investment here, I think we need to use the talent, the knowledge, and the connections that many have in this room as we go abroad to get investment to come back into the city. Thank you.
Very good. So now, Kerry, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, that's
fine. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think the best way we can encourage business is by keeping taxes to a reasonable level, and I hear that a lot from businesses. They've, in 10 years, the average increase in property tax has gone up about 50%, and that's pretty tough because I don't think your wages have gone up that much. So I think we can do far better, as Mayoral insists, that taxes be no higher than the rate of inflation, quite simply, which is about 2% now. And if we keep them in a reasonable place like that, business will thrive. It will help. Thank you.
Well, just to expand a little bit on the immigrant business incubator that I mentioned, I wouldn't envision the city necessarily putting money into it, but perhaps providing space, because that's very, very important right off the bat, to find space, to get an idea, to meet with people, and then also to deliver programmings like professional development and mentorship from immigrant business leaders who've come before, who've blazed the trail. And that's what any good incubator does, is help build the capacity of people who have an idea but need skills, need to connect with investors, need to find space to get established in order to get their business going. And I think there's a federal program that can probably fund it, and a lot of interest already from a number of business leaders, immigrant business leaders who've been successful, who are interested in supporting this as a philanthropy and potentially as investment in order to diversify their own holdings. So there's some very interesting opportunities there. And it's following the same model that I've supported with Startup Edmonton, which is our tech incubator, which is downtown in the Mercer warehouse. And I'm really impressed by the diversity of people there. There are people from almost every culture starting businesses. So there's a little United Nations of commerce happening right there in our tech industry. But we need to take that out to support restaurateurs and clothiers, retailers, others who want to start their own businesses and professional services.
Very good. So now for the second question. And we'll start with Kerry this time. How do you plan to attract business immigrants to the city?
Well, one of the things we can do is to make sure that we don't become one of those cities that are no longer affordable. And that's happened in this country. My own sister had to leave Calgary because her job did not pay enough money to afford an apartment. She couldn't find an apartment. And I don't want to become that city. So again, if I want to be a good fiscal steward so that we have a thriving city and we keep taxes to the point where people can afford them, and that feeds business. I truly believe it's up to the entrepreneur to create the business. It's not going to be government. That's certainly not it. So that I think again it's quite a simple solution, and we just do it.
Thank you. Now, Karen, again, how to make Edmonton a city that will attract business immigrants?
What we need to do is to start putting some shovels in the ground on some of those transformational projects that we've approved but have yet to actually have anything to happen to them. One is the Arena and Entertainment District. If you don't have a vital downtown, if you don't have a downtown that is vibrant, people kind of look at your city and wonder, what's wrong with you? So we need to have our heart and soul of our city. We need to ensure that that's vibrant. We need to finish our LRT system. We need to ensure that Blatchford, that empty piece of land that used to be an airport, actually has the ability to have to be constructed and to be developed. We need to ensure that we're a welcoming city. And right now we are. We have a great sense of community. But when you look at 20,000 people a year moving into our city, there's starting to be some dissonance. There's starting to be some issues that I believe we need to grapple now before they become much bigger. And that's again why I put forward the idea of the mayor's initiative on diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Don.
Well, I think one of the most important competitive differentiators that Edmonton has is the relative affordability of housing. It is a lot more expensive here than it was 10 or 15 years ago, but it's still cheaper than Vancouver and Toronto, and it's still a bit cheaper than Calgary. And actually Calgary is getting much more expensive, and ours is getting a little bit more expensive. So there's a gap opening up there, and I think that's maintaining that gap, maintaining that affordability, both to own and to rent. And we've got some work to do around rental in particular, which is what a lot of newcomers are. They don't have a down payment, they need rental housing. So the affordability of housing is critical. But if we can maintain that advantage, that's going to bring more people to Edmonton from all backgrounds. I think leveraging education here, the fact that you can get great education from kindergarten to your PhD in nanotechnology, that's going to be a attractor, because most good professionals want to continue to learn, and certainly they want their kids to have access to some of the best schools in the world. So that's a competitive advantage that we need to protect, because our schools, and especially our post-secondary, are under threat right now. And then maintaining a strong business climate that values entrepreneurship from all sectors, and I think our city does. That's part of our culture, but emphasizing that and promoting that around the world, again, as that's what helps make Edmonton a great destination for people from anywhere to come, build a life, build a business, raise a family.
Perfect. That's exactly, when we want to come to Canada, we look at cities and we choose from many factors which one to live in. Very good. Let's move to the question number 3, and we'll start with Don this time. How will you make Edmonton one of the most efficient local government administrations in Canada?
Well, we need to do two things. One, we need to constantly strive for efficiency, and I think we do, but then we also need to show our work so that citizens have confidence that we actually are making improvements. And so I've proposed formalizing that in a program I call Council's 2%, where instead of just sort of pretending to make changes to the budget and having a lot of hot air in November and December, that we actually work all year with all members of council involved, and with city staff, and with frontline workers, to look at ways that we can marginally increase the efficiency of the city over time. And if there's something big we come up with, that's great, but we should set ourselves a goal every year and hold ourselves to it, to find 2% efficiency in the tax-supported operations of the city, and show you where those savings are come from. And that's going to be efficiency, it's going to be innovative new technology, and it's going to be potentially different sources of revenue if those are available to us. So formalizing that and challenging ourselves, holding ourselves to that every year is one of them, and then benchmarking against other cities, competitors, and private industry as well, where there's a comparable, and measuring our progress over time a little more solidly. I think that will help too.
Very good. So now, Kerry, how to make Edmonton one of the most efficient local governments in Canada?
Well, with all due respect, Don, I've been trying that for 3 years, but I haven't had any support from anybody. I've put forward about $15 million in efficiencies at the time of budgeting, and been turned down by my two competitors as well as everybody else. So you can only try so hard. But as mayor, I would insist that taxes not be hiked higher than the rate of inflation, once again. It's unacceptable. We've already given, I voted against this, but we've told administration already to go out and create a budget at 5%, a 5% increase. That's ridiculous. You don't, people don't get 5% wage hikes automatically. It's ridiculous. And so we need political will, and this council unfortunately didn't have it. As mayor, I would have the will to tackle that. There are efficiencies at City Hall, whether it be the use of consultants or burgeoning printing budget, overtime, salaries. It's there.
Thank you. Karen?
I wish it was a debate. But I'll stick to what my platform is. And that is that when you look at the way we do our budget right now, we need to start taking control of it as council. And that's why I put forward the idea of a finance committee, so that we don't go through the game of during the budget time where we start at a certain percentage and we bring it down to another percentage and then we get down to another percentage. But then on a regular basis, at the minimum monthly, much like the provincial government does their budget, much like the federal government does their budget, much like other big cities do their budget, that we have a finance committee set up of the mayor and MLAs, and the mayor and councillors. The province has the MLAs, mayor and councillors. What we also are starting to do is we're starting to look at results-based budgeting, which is really important because then you can see that you're getting value for your tax dollar. Because right now, our communications isn't very good as to what you get from your tax dollar. And with the results-based budgeting, you can then see what the outcomes are. And you can then have the metrics. You can measure whether or not you're getting what you're paying for. And that's very, very important in terms of doing the budget. So that's what I would do that's different. Thank you.
Cities are connected in networks to help each other with best practices and experiences. Mayors alone are also working in international networks. How do you see connecting with other cities in Alberta, other provinces of Canada, and at international level?
Well, the city actually has a very strong track record of international leadership around the environment in particular. We work with a group called the Local Governments for Sustainability. We actually hosted their global conference here a couple of years ago, and it was widely celebrated and positive event. It gave Edmonton the chance to showcase a lot of our environmental leadership at the Waste Management Center, with the preservation of the river valley. We're also involved in a biodiversity network. So that creates opportunities for Edmonton to tell its story about the successes, because sometimes the story about Northern Alberta is not a good environmental story, and Edmonton has a great track record there. So this is good for business and creates new relationships and helps change perceptions about Edmonton and Northern Alberta. So there's a history of doing that around the environment. But the other place where we do a lot of that is obviously around commerce and trade. And we work with the Chamber of Commerce. There are routine trade missions to other parts of the world, key trading partners. We work also with the provincial offices. The province maintains sort of pseudo-consulates out there in different parts of the world, and we need to work with them because the cities can't do all this kind of outreach alone. So we work with, I think, the province and the federal government to reach out and create trade networks. And actually, we're now looking at marketing our expertise around waste management out into the world. We've got deals pending in China, a deal signed in the Ukraine, actually, a couple of deals teed up in the United States, and that's a chance for us to not only demonstrate leadership, but create revenue for the city as well, based on our expertise. So it's a good trade relationship and an environmental win for the city of Edmonton that we get recognition for.
Very good. Kieran?
Thank you. Well, last year I spent representing the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and that's exactly what I did. I met with mayors from across the country, mayors from across the world, and I represented Canada in that role. I also was able to participate in and have for a number of years now with the Big City Mayors Caucus, which is part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So I know all the big city mayors across the country. When we look at the role of FCM, we're a member of the United Cities and Local Governments Organization, and I was also able to participate, chair some of those meetings, and be part of their World Assembly, the World Congress that was held last year in Africa. I have connections with our sister organizations that are much like FCM in Ukraine and Africa, United States, and many other spots around the world. I believe that we have the ability to be a leader in our role with other mayors across the country. I also had an opportunity to chair a $550 million fund, which was the Green Municipal Fund, And during that, I had the chance to look at best practices when it comes to environmental projects that were being put forward and to approve those as well. Our group did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carrie?
We always have to look at other cities for best practices. I think probably there are certainly areas where we use best practices. That would be in the recycling, where we're very good at that. But when it comes to things like snow removal, we had a very bad storm years back, and it took a full month to clear our streets of snow, which is unacceptable. So at the time, I pushed for a committee to, and some of our people from the city to look at Ottawa and places like that where they can clear snow in 2 days. And they actually went there. One of the guys from the union went there. Some of our senior staff went there. And as a result of looking at benchmarks in that city and others, we now have snow clearing that's vastly improved. Vastly improved. I think it's still got a ways to go. But again, just because we went to started looking around at other cities where they have better practices, we adopted those, and that's why you have to constantly be connecting with other cities.
And this one is also very important for all of us at this moment. Like many businesses, the City of Edmonton has a strategic plan. In your words, I'm sorry, in 1 minute, will you present to us the strategic plan of the City of Edmonton? What is Edmonton's strategic plan? And let's start with Kerry.
Wow, that's a tough one. What is that? Well, one of the things that I find kind of, sadly funny, is we've got all kinds of plans. We've got vision statements this thick, and the way we green, the way we move. We spend so much time navel gazing that often there's not as much work done that should be being done. So I think often Edmonton looks at these plans and navel gazes, and I think we've got to get back to just doing some real work. I know that when the new mayor and council sits down, I think there are 3 or 4 days of sessions where we sit around and talk about the vision of transportation, our green vision, the way we move, our transportation vision. I think it's too much. I say get the job done, go ahead, get to work.
Very good. Can we hear Don about the strategic plan of Edmonton?
Yeah, the city's strategic plan is called The Way Ahead. It is a 10-year plan with 6 goals in it. The 6 goal areas are first around growth, and we seek more balanced growth and more compact growth in the core, as well as the newer communities that we build will be denser and more efficient as well. The transportation goal is called in the plan we call The Way We Move, is to help create more transportation choices and shift the way Edmontonians move through our city over time while maintaining the easy flow of goods and labor within the city by all modes, but increasing choices for LRT, for bike use, for pedestrians across the city. We have The Way We Live is the 3rd goal, which is around increasing the livability and social success and social infrastructure in the city, and very detailed plans there. The 4th is The Way We Prosper, which is our economic development plan, which was the most recently approved one and lays out a number of goals and things that we can do, starting with enhancing Edmonton's image and reputation, but then a bunch of other things we can do to enhance the climate for business. The 5th goal is The Way We Green, which is reducing the city's impact on the environment over time. Further, in the 6th, which we haven't concluded yet, is perhaps the most important. It's called The Way We Finance, or as I call it, how the hell we're going to pay for all of it. And that's the one that the new council needs to do together, and it needs to do it with reference back to the other 5. So I think those 4 days are pretty well spent to make sure that all of the returning and new members of council are up to speed on the plans, can recite them if asked, and can buy into them. And if council needs to adjust course on those, council really needs to review that and either buy into those plans or change them before figuring out how we're going to balance the priorities across all those different plans.
Thank you very much. Karen.
Thank you. Most of us throughout our time on council have had initiatives, and Transforming Edmonton, which is the initiative, what it's called, that produced The Way Ahead, was one of my initiatives that I was involved in at the front end, and now Councillor Katarina is involved as well. What occurred was a few years back, thousands of Edmontonians were involved in developing a vision. And out of that, a vision of what did they want to Edmonton, what did Edmonton mean to them. And based on that, there was a statement that was provided in a strategic plan that came out of it. Because the strategic plan is the plan that provides focus to our efforts to ensure that we're delivering what Edmontonians value, what Edmontonians are asking for, and also that we're looking at how we deliver those services. The 6 ways that Dawn outlined are actually the way they actually outline, okay, what are the expectations? What are you going to get at the end of the day? And that goes back to your earlier question about budgeting and financing, because you need to know where you're going in order to know where your dollars are going to be, and then you need to know that your dollars are being used properly, and so it becomes a little bit circular, but at the end of the day, you get a really good picture of what the services are that the city is producing. So thank you for the question, good question.
Thank you very much. Incredible, in 1 minute to get an amazing view of what the whole city is involved in. Okay, let's go to one question that we got from the public today. And this one is also very important for all immigrants, not only everybody resident in Edmonton. How do you plan to attract students from other countries, immigrant students, to the University of Alberta in the advent of major budget cuts? Because the University of Alberta is a major economic engine of the province and is a university closely identified with the city of Edmonton. We say University of Alberta, we say Edmonton, and when we talk about students from other countries, the University of Alberta is their first choice. How do you plan to attract foreign or talented immigrant students to Alberta after the major cuts we've had?
Well, again, KarenForMayor.ca, I put out a news release, and the title was "Great Universities and Colleges are Important to Great Cities," because they're fundamental to ensuring that we can attract students and others to come to our city. You need great educational institutions, great healthcare institutions, and they provide that foundation for what people are looking for when they're making their choice worldwide. What city are they going to come to? I said in that I would champion our universities and colleges, that I would bring together EDC, the Chamber of Commerce, and I hope that will include the Latino Chamber of Commerce as well as others, so that we can start our advocacy to ensure that our universities and colleges in the city of Edmonton are vibrant. To think that the University of Alberta might lose its character, might lose its ability to call itself that, because we're talking about an Alberta campus. That is actually very frightening, because they're also an economic driver in our city. Thousands of jobs, and we need to ensure that they are strong. The other part of attracting international students is again, the whole quality of life. We need to be more welcoming as a city, I believe. Over 100,000 students come into the city, and very little do we do as a city to welcome them, to say, we want you here. We want you to stay here. And that's a role that I'd like to undertake to ensure that we can do more in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Don?
Well, I used to work over at the university for many years, and I know, and my mom actually is just about to retire as a professor from there. So it's, and again, like I mentioned, my family's been involved in the university for a long time, but it's not just about the University of Alberta. NAIT is incredibly important too. They train 19 out of the 21 most in-demand jobs in northern Alberta right now. MacEwan is increasingly playing an important role as the U of A struggles. MacEwan is filling in some of the gaps, and Norquest works predominantly with women, a lot of whom are single parents, many of whom are immigrants and refugees or Aboriginal people, and so our entire post-secondary system is critical to the success of Edmonton and serves a great diversity of learners. I started an initiative some years back called the City of Learners Initiative, designed to increase learning success in literacy and in early childhood development, but also to champion the fact that Edmonton is a city of learners. This is a core value for us in our community. As I mentioned before, it's one of those key competitive differentiators for us, and the mayor needs to stand up for that, not just in times of cutback, but also proactively, as I have been for some years now, trying to make it known that this is one of the defining features of Edmonton, because that's how you establish a defensive bulwark against cutbacks to our institutions. So one other thing that I think we need, and to specifically attract international students, is housing. We need a lot more housing on our campuses, and because the rental market is tight and the student experience is more positive if it's on campus. So we need more campus housing, and I'm committed to working with our post-secondary institutions to see aggressive expansion in the supply of student housing, which will support more international students more successfully learning and hopefully staying here afterwards as well.
Thank you very much. Carrie?
That's excuse me. That's a very good topic. I had a meeting the other day with Indira at the University, the president, and we discussed that very same matter. And it is very, very important to this economy, the university. And I know that the province, as mayor, we really have to push the province to take back some of those cuts, because they're getting a lot of heat for it, deservedly so. And I think they're probably willing to move right now because it's dominating the headlines. And we have to keep the city affordable for students. We can't have a situation where there's nowhere to live. I've run into people like that over the summer, said that they're having to live in people's basements and because there's not enough housing, and much of the housing is too expensive, so we've got to keep a close eye on that.
Very good. Thank you. So here we are going to close our forum, giving each candidate another opportunity to ask you for their vote. At the beginning, they have a presentation on their background, their ideas, their platform. We would like to ask you in closing that you tell us which are your main talents, experience, and commitments accumulated to be elected mayor of the city of Edmonton. Why are you the person we should vote for?
No, 3 should be more than enough, really. The talents I bring are that I'm a coalition builder. You know, I build alliances, and as I mentioned before, cities are weaker, and so we are more successful when we work together with our business community, with our multicultural communities, with fellow municipalities, and that's where we find strength, and that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years as a city councillor, is building coalitions. I mentioned the City of Learners, that's one. I've been active in the region for the last several years as chair of the Regional Transit Committee, bringing together arguably an even more diverse group of people, urban and rural, large and small, from across the political spectrum too, to do some fairly extraordinary things in the region together. So that speaks to not only my experience, but more specifically my ability to bring people together, to get them inspired, to get them to rally around a cause. And I think my commitments, the most relevant ones, are to ensure that Edmonton continues to be a great place to learn, a great place to live, a great place to do business, and a great place to collaborate, because that's the strength of Edmonton, is that people don't just work in their silos, they cross and they work together. So the Fringe Festival succeeds not only because it's full of wonderful people who love theater, but because it's supported so strongly by our business community, and because the businesses along White Avenue create such a hospitable climate for the tourists who come and for the Edmontonians who are coming. So it's the integration of all of these things. It's PCL giving back to the community. It's Alberta Treasury branches giving back to the community. And then it's the people who find jobs in those same companies that support their artistic endeavors and their non-governmental and social services work. The integration of all of those things is what makes Edmonton great, and I want to continue to facilitate that type of collaboration, the very kind of collaboration that allows the St. John's Institute to do what it does. I mean, think about this. There's housing, there's multicultural activity here, there's artistic activity here, and there's community use of the facility. That's the model that almost everything great in Edmonton is built on, is integration and collaboration. And that's the kind of work that I like to do. I love bringing people together, and it's not that expensive either, because you're leveraging each other's strengths rather than doing everything separately. And so my commitment is to continue to lead Edmonton in that sort of direction. I think that's the kind of leadership that Mayor Mandel has shown was, let's not just run off in different directions. Let's align around a common cause and let's build a great city together. And that's why I ran in 2007, was because I wanted to be a part of something new and bold and organized and forward-looking that was happening in Edmonton. And it's been a real privilege to serve the citizens of this city, in all of their great diversity over the last 6 years. And I'm really hopeful at the opportunity to lead this city and be a strong voice for where we do need a champion. If our post-secondary institutions come under further attack, I will defend them. If people with gender or sexual minorities suffer violence in our community, I will speak out for them. If there's racism in our community, I will condemn it in no uncertain terms, because it has no place in my city or your city or our state. And ultimately, the Mayor of Edmonton needs to inspire Edmontonians to be yet more excited about the great city that we're building here, but also to get people in Toronto and in Houston and in New York and in Beijing and in Caracas and everywhere else where we need to visit over time to understand that this is truly becoming a globally competitive city. And that's my vision, and that's what I'm working towards through this campaign, and I hope to have the mandate to go out there and lead our great city to even greater heights. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now, Karen, do you want to come to the podium and give us your request for the vote?
My wish?
Requesting our vote.
Thank you so much. You know that our city is a city of dreams and it's a city of opportunities. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. You'd be somewhere else. And you know the great potential that we have in this city. But I know that there's lots of work that needs to get done. And I know in order to get that work done, you need strong leadership. You need proven leadership. You need experience, and you need someone in that mayor's chair who has a track record. A track record of getting things done. Visions are fine, but without enacting those visions, we don't go very far. We have reports that sit on shelves. Over the last number of years, I believe I've accomplished much in my different careers that I've held. And all that experience I can bring to the mayor's chair. I can step into that mayor's chair with not very much of a learning curve, because I can tell you, the minute the election is called, that mayor has to leap into action. And I know the first job of that mayor is going to be to pick up the phone to the 6, if there's 6, hopefully there is, returning councillors and 6 new councillors, and start to build a team. Yes, we're all independent, but we have to be able to work together, because if we don't, the city is going to be disrupted. The city is going to suffer. And I don't think we should move backwards in time, and I don't think we need to veer off course. We're on a good course. For 9 years, we've made decisions to build this city, to make this city strong, and we need to continue that course. So what you need in a mayor, I believe, and obviously I believe I have those attributes, is one, someone who can build a cohesive council, who can bring people together around the table. And as president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, my board was 75 elected members. Not elected to be on the board, they had to do that too, but they were elected in their own communities. Their mayors and reeves and councillors from across the country, from the city of Toronto to the smallest municipality you could ever imagine. And they represented northern communities and rural communities, and at the end of the day, when we had to speak with one voice to the federal government to get $53 billion back into municipalities across this country, and I needed in my back pocket, when I was talking to the federal government, a unanimous vote, we had a unanimous vote. Now that's coming together. We also need someone who's going to stand up for Edmonton's needs, because we're going to need to talk to the region. If the region's strong, we're strong. If we're strong, the region's strong. But we cannot give in and give up what we need for Edmonton to be the strong urban center that we are. You need someone who understands the value of a tax dollar. You need someone who will not pit one community against another. And right now, we're precariously close to saying the suburbs should be treated differently than those communities that accept infill. I don't believe that's what Edmontonians want. We don't want to see preference based on that. And so based on my track record, and based on my leadership abilities, and based on my experience, I want to say, hold on. Once again, por favor, voten me, and muchas gracias.
Very good. Now we invite Carrie to the last 3 minutes of the forum.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this event. It really is important. It's an important election. So let's get right to the meat of the matter. It's why vote for Carrie Diot as mayor? Well, I'm the only person who is actually talking about a vision that's your vision. I've heard it. I've been door knocking. Our team announced that we were running for mayor before the current mayor decided to step down. And my two worthy opponents were not prepared to even run against the current mayor. So we showed leadership, and we got to the doors, and we talked to people and said, what's important to you for a change? What's important to you? People are not used to hearing that from politicians. They're used to politicians standing up saying, I do this, I do that. You know, if I speak really slowly, I'll be able to, I'll be able to tell you to love taxes. But we go to the doors as a team, and we say what's important to you. And here are the issues that come up time and time again. The big three or the big four. It's fix the roads. And we have to. We've fallen down on that. You can't blame another mayor or a mayor before that mayor for that problem. They've been crumbling for 10 years. The other one we hear constantly is the arena deal stinks. It's a bad financial deal. It's too much money to a billionaire. I know that, many of you probably come to this country and struggle to make ends meet. And yet here we are handing over billions, millions of dollars to a billionaire. I'm going to be the person that says the arena deal goes forward, but not another cent of tax money into it, period. Because you know that it's a good chance that it could go into overruns. And finally, we hear at the doors, we hear so much about debt and taxes, and I have had a senior at the door who is crying, saying, don't raise my taxes any higher, I can't afford to live in this. So it's not just to be a penny pincher, it's high taxation hurts those in our society who can least afford it. So if you'd like more details, please go to carriediot.com. I really appreciate you coming out, and vote for me on October 21st for real change, This is how we build.